If football is a car in India, then NorthEast is its engine. We are the only club in India which represents 8 states. It is important for us to make our presence felt in all these 8 states. But we also have to ensure that we are contributing to the development of these states also for the sport. Yes, we want to play in other states also, and we know that obviously Manipur is a very important state when it comes to football. A lot of representation from the state. Point out the thing that when we play here, we want more fans to come. We can do a lot more better with regards to the performance on the pitch. We just don't want to continue a player just for the sake of it, but also because he's performing. I think for me as a CEO of the club, it was important to keep the core of the team always, and we almost were managed to keep 92% of the squad from last year to this season. Obviously going forward, we'll again try and maintain the continuity because for us that is very important. Obviously the performing players will continue in terms of how we want to see them at the club. Also the players whom we feel that maybe their contract is still to get over, maybe after 2 years it's getting over, but they are performing well, they will further be extended also. So I think the continuity is a major thing, and I believe in that, for me that's very important to ensure that the club has a stable future and on which we can the strong foundations are then put in place, and then we build on this to have a good team every year going forward. There is a talk about obviously Aladdin being offered to every 12 clubs in the ISL, and I know everybody wants to know about that. But I think people don't understand that when we announced the signing of Aladdin, we had clearly mentioned it was a 1+1 contract. So it's a +1 contract with certain conditions. If they are met, there's an automatic extension. So I think that's where it is. So obviously when we frame the contracts, you have to ensure that you know what you're doing with regards to the continuity, with regards to also the performance-based continuity, because normally you just don't want to continue a player just for the sake of it, but also because he's performing. So I'm pretty sure that from a fan's perspective, the right decisions will be taken, and I don't think anybody has to be worried about that. The primary factor for us to go to Shillong is because we are the only club in India which represents 8 states. You look at any other club, a club that is playing in the ISL, all the other 12 clubs are either representing a city or a state, right? So when we are a club that is representing 8 states, it is important for us to make our presence felt in all these 8 states. Now, how can you make this presence felt? One is obviously playing the games is one factor, yes. Wherever, as I mentioned, the infrastructure is going to support us to host the game. But the other is also doing a kind of work which will help the state grow, the region grow. Because we know that if you see all the other clubs in the ISL, the I-League First Division, the I-League Second Division, the IWL, you've got almost 58 to 60% of the players coming from the region, right? From the Northeast region. So that's the impact of the region to Indian football. So if we as a club, being the torch bearer of representing all the 8 states, have to not just be playing our matches in the 8 states, but also doing meaningful work where we can develop the football in the region, which will help the region grow as a football in terms of the football. It will help us as a club to grow in football. It will help the states to grow as a football state, and this in the end eventually is obviously going to help Indian football. Yes, we want to play in other states also, but again at the same time the stadium infrastructure has to be conducive for us to host an ISL game. We had the national team played in Imphal a couple of years back, and we know that obviously Manipur is a very important state when it comes to football. A lot of representation from the state is there in various clubs, not just in the ISL but also in the I-League and even in the lower leagues. So I think we would like to expand ourselves to the other states also. Unfortunately with Manipur it's difficult to go right now. In Arunachal and Itanagar, the stadium is got very good stadium where the Santosh Trophy final was held between Services in Goa last season, but it's an artificial pitch. So again, we can't go and play an ISL game there. Obviously in Mizoram also, the stadium is an artificial pitch. So wherever the infrastructure allows us to host an ISL game, we'll be more than happy to try and play our matches there. But having said that, Guwahati will always be our base because that's where the club has always been. The only thing, if I have to sort of, I wouldn't say complain, but point out the things that when we play here, we want more fans to come. And for any club, for any players, for any coaches, it is important that they have the support of the fans uh, in being physical present for the games. So I think that is where something which we can also as a club try and see that we get more and more fans. Obviously, there are a lot of fans which have always complained that the stadium being a little bit on the outskirts of the city, it's difficult to travel in the night. The game's at 7:30, it ends at 9:30. It's difficult to go back, after the game is over. So I think there are certain aspects where, even we also as a club need to do certain things which are more friendly for the fans to come in. But at the end, we would want the fans to come, because if they are the fans, then they should be supporting the club by coming to the games, every game as possible. I joined the club last year, and the numbers that I had for the previous season before I joined, the averaging was around 400, 450, 500 fans. To where we are now, where we are after 2 years, we are almost averaging maybe around 6.5 to 7,000 spectators. I think it's a big jump. Obviously, the team performing well on the pitch with regards to how we play. Obviously, we can do a lot more better with regards to the performance on the pitch. But I think this is also helping us for the fans to probably come back, because if you remember in the initial 2-3 years of the Indian Super League, the stadium was always full. But that's what you want. So I think from that aspect, I think there has been a jump. But yes, a lot more can be done. I think we have been engaging with the different fan groups that are there for the club as to what as a club we can do. Obviously, the biggest and the most important reasoning that they have is try to ensure that if we could have buses, more frequent services from the city to here, that can be a primary step which can help them. But we also have to ensure that we are contributing to the development of these states also for the sport. So I think we are engaging with the respective governments to see how we can, in our way, bring more expertise with regards to football to their own. Every state has its own development plan for sports, especially for football, because even the governments knows that football is a priority sport for the region. So we, being sort of the professional ISL club in the region, we also have to ensure that we do this. So I think these steps are also important for the fans to realize that we are doing this sort of a meaningful work. And I think in a year, couple of years more, I think I see this all culminating into the support that we require at a club. So our first role when we came last year was to engage ourselves with the Guwahati Sports Association and see if we can have this kids and youth league, which can then be something for the coaches, the small academies, the clubs to look forward to, because at the end of the day, there is a lot of football happening within the state which we are even not aware of. And if there is a competition, then everybody comes under one umbrella and the development definitely happens, because then somebody obviously is going to win, and the teams that don't win then want to be more competitive for the next season for them to then perform well, which means then the coaches also want to upgrade themselves, the coaches also want to develop themselves. So it's the whole ecosystem that will develop once there is a competition there. The Guwahati Sports Association made it happen the first season, and again we had the second season now. And I think if you see the representation in the first year in terms of the numbers of the academies as well as the players participating in various age group, it has increased in the year 2. So which itself is a sort of a yardstick to show that we are on the right track. And I'm actually thankful to Mr. Saikia and his team there, that for believing in us, in ensuring that they build this kind of a structure. Similarly, we probably want to do another competition, maybe with the help of the state government or the Assam Football Association also, because there's no harm in having two different competitions at youth level. You want these kids in the under 7s, under 9s, under 11s, under 13s and the 15s to play at least 45-50 matches in the whole season. And that's the only way for development for Indian football, not just the regional football. You see, people will have their own opinions about Indian Super League, Indian football, etc. But I feel I was a manager of the Indian national team in 2009 to 2012. And from now, if I look forward after where we were to now, I think there's definitely been a huge growth. Now, growth necessary may not reflect in terms of the standing of India in FIFA, but the understanding of the sport or the importance of different aspects within football, whether it's quality coaching, whether it is using of sports science, it is using of technology per se, this all things are on the upward trend. See, at the end of the day, when you hold different competitions, different matches, even at the youth level or state level or senior level, I think it helps not just the players, the coaches, it obviously is going to help administrators and referees also, because there is a lot that goes behind even organizing even a youth or kids league. So the people that are involved are obviously going to get better to ensure that they are able to host such competitions. There was this Bardolai trophy, which is a very famous trophy in Indian football, you know, and I think the Guwahati Sports Association is in plans to make it a much bigger competition going forward. So this gives confidence, right? You had a small kids in youth league, now you want to graduate that to a further league. So there is this movement that is happening. So I'm pretty sure when such competitions happen, you want to have referees, you want to have a more competitive nature for that team that did not win, to try and ensure that they win the next year. So then they will look at ensuring that their own coaches are getting upgraded, or their own coaches are trying to bring more coaches, which will help the other coaches also to grow. So I think it's the whole ecosystem that develops. So I think having competitions is the only way forward. It may not be just for the kids, but even the state league for that matter. We know that in Meghalaya, you have got a Meghalaya league. In Mizoram, you have got the Mizoram Super League. So whenever these competitions happen, you have coaches developing, you have got players developing, you have got referees developing. So similarly in Assam, I think we are on the right track to take this to the next step. And I'm pretty sure with time, you'll have more referees and administrators also coming out from the region. I've got a very strong opinion about women's football in India, and I think the clubs that are currently part of the Indian Women's League are doing a very, very good job, because to take effort and money to do a women's team also is necessary. But I firmly believe that if you want to make any meaningful contribution to women's football, you should have the IWL, a much longer league. You cannot just have 1 or 2 months league and then participate and then just say as a club that you're doing a tick mark to just have a women's team. We already have a women's team in place, but that we have done at a lower age group, and we want to ensure that by the time this league also becomes robust, we have these girls ready for that particular competition as and when with time. And I think the girls from the Northeast are already participating in different clubs in India in the IWL. So there is always a representation of girls also from the region. So I think once the whole competition structure gets slightly better, then I think we will be more, we'll have a more say as a football club in IWL also. But what I've seen about John is, when I left my previous job and I was not doing anything, and when John approached and we got into a conversation about my possibility working at NorthEast, the first thing that clicked me with him was he said that, if football is a car in India, then NorthEast is his engine. And these words itself defined what he meant, because that comes only out of passion, understanding of a sport. He understands Indian football, and I'm making it very specific. Indian football, very, very, it's unbelievable to know that he understands the kind of Indian football as an owner that he understands. He knows all the players very well. He knows what formations. I mean, it's very easy to talk to him on a technical aspect of football, of Indian football. So that's very important. He's obviously very passionate about the game. He knows that the region is very important to be developed for Indian football also to develop going forward. And also the factor that he's the only non-corporate owner, so to say, as far as Indian football is concerned. We have got all other corporates who own football teams. So he's putting in his personal money into the sport. So when you have got such good people, then you would want to support them. You want to help them to ensure that that money that they're putting in brings value for them. Today we know that there are bigger clubs in India which are spending a lot more bigger money for players and other things that they do. But I think ensuring that whatever money John is putting, it has to be justified with the value that he gets back from it, is what my role, I believe, is. After every game, we have a conversation. He has his own opinions. And he always will say that, in my humble opinion, I feel so and so. but at the same time he's not very interfering, if I can use that word, in terms that he will put his foot down, I feel this is and it has to be done, because he understands that that part of the footballing part has to be left to the professionals, who can then probably get the right decision. But he will always have an opinion, and which all of us will always value. Everybody wants to become a footballer or become a sportsman, but at a certain stage we realize that we are not good enough probably, to be at the highest level. I was a footballer, but I was not good enough to play beyond maybe Maharashtra state, that's where my level was. But from a parent's perspective, it is important to understand that there is a career in sports apart from playing now, and which is very, very important. People will always say either study or play, but why can't you do both? Now, even if you are the best footballer in an under, say, 15 age group, the best in the country, still that doesn't mean that you cannot do education. You have to do education, because you want thinking sportsmen. You want sportsmen who are intelligent, because every sport is about decision making. Today, if you're playing football and you receive a ball, what are you going to do next? It's a decision that you need to take. Whether you want to take a shot, or whether you want to dribble, or whether you want to pass. All these things will obviously come from your training and your coaching and your experience in competition, but there is something called as intellect, and intellect can only come from education. So education and sports have to be done parallelly. The percentage of each will depend on how good a sportsman you can be or not be. And then after education, obviously there are so many verticals that you can still be involved in sports. Today, when we are working in sports, obviously in my previous capacity, I was also a part of a JSW group which was into cricket, which was into kabaddi, which was into Olympic sports. We see that we need professionals in every field. Today, even when we are working in a football club, we need lawyers to define the contracts, to define so many things that goes legally within the football club. We fail to see sports lawyers. We get lawyers who are lawyers, who will then go on read the bylaws of the FIFA or the bylaws of the AIFF and try and come with a certain solution, because obviously they are lawyers. But you need sports specific people. Today even physios, you don't want the physios who are working in hospitals trying to recuperate patients who are coming out of a surgery, but you want sports specific physios, you want sports specific doctors. Media, social media, designing in sports is also important, and you need sports specific, sports centric people. So I think there is a massive career. We have got so many leagues happening. IPL is one such, ISL is there, you've got the Kabaddi League, you're now having the pickleball, which is coming up very big, in a big way. You've got tennis happening, badminton, every league. You've got such a big center in Assam itself for badminton here. So I think there are so many I believe there's a junior championship that is likely to happen in Guwahati going forward. You need people to organize operationally, management, sponsorship, sales, media, lawyers, doctors, nutritionists, sports psychologists. So many I think verticals are there within the sports where people can pursue their education in and come back and work in something which is a passion. Today you need people to be passionate to work in sports. It cannot be a 9 to 6 job. You just came, done, and you're going home. Unless and until you have passion, you will not be successful. So I think there is a big career in sports apart from playing, to be working in sports.